The alarm screamed across the bridge of the Dravek Imperial flagship. Officers jumped from their stations, their scaled hands moving fast over glowing controls. Something impossible was happening in the outer nexus, and Admiral Vorthek did not believe in impossible things. "Report!" His voice boomed through the command center. The Admiral's red eyes narrowed as he stared at the main viewing screen. His tall frame towered over the crew, his dark armor reflecting the emergency lights. A junior officer turned, his face pale with fear. "Admiral, we have a massive energy reading. Something is coming out of slipspace. The coordinates. They should not work. No ship can navigate through that region." Vorthek stepped forward. For 300 cycles, the Dravek Empire had controlled this sector. Nothing entered the outer nexus without permission. Nothing dared to challenge their might. He had crushed a dozen rebellions and destroyed countless fleets that questioned Imperial authority. "Show me," he commanded. The screen changed. Space itself seemed to tear open. Blue and white energy crackled across the dark void. Then, slowly, a ship emerged. It was massive, larger than most Dravek cruisers. The hull was gray and black, covered in strange markings. Lights blinked along its surface. The engines glowed with power that the sensors could barely measure. "What is that?" Vorthek demanded. "What species builds such a vessel?" His communications officer worked frantically at her station. "Admiral, I am scanning their hull markings. The language is unknown to our databases." "Wait. I am getting a translation. The ship identifies itself as the TSS Indomitable. It claims to be from Terra? Vorthek had never heard of such a world. "Where is this Terra?" "Unknown, Admiral. It is not in any of our star charts." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Jinho Park sat in his command chair. His dark eyes studied the tactical display with calm focus. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. No one panicked. No one shouted. They had trained for unexpected situations, and this certainly qualified as unexpected. "Well," Jinho said softly, "this is not where we were supposed to be." Lieutenant Yuna Choi stood at the weapons station, her hands resting on the controls. She was young but skilled, known throughout the fleet for her steady nerves. "Captain, I count 20 warships surrounding our position. They are moving into attack formation." "Shields?" Jinyu asked. Commander Taeho Kim looked up from the engineering console. He was a broad-shouldered man with graying hair and hands that were always stained with machine oil. "Shields at full power, Captain. The slipspace jump was rough, but all systems are functioning normally." "Good." Jinho stood and straightened his uniform. "Hana, open a channel. Let us introduce ourselves properly." Ensign Hana Shin worked her controls. She was the youngest officer on the bridge, barely 23 years old. Her specialty was languages and communication. "Channel open, sir." Jinho cleared his throat. "This is Captain Jinho Park of the Terran spaceship Indomitable, representing Earth and the United Terran Fleet. We come in peace. Our navigation systems experienced a malfunction, and we have arrived in your space by accident. We request safe passage to continue our journey. We mean you no harm." On the Dravek flagship, Vorthek listened to the translation. His lips curled into a sneer. "Peace? They speak of peace while carrying weapons that my sensors cannot fully analyze? They arrive in Imperial space without permission and expect us to simply let them leave?" He turned to his tactical officer. "What can you tell me about their weapons?" "Admiral, their technology is strange. I detect energy signatures that match no known weapons systems. Their shields are unusual. Very unusual. The power output should not be possible from a ship that size." Vorthek's eyes gleamed. If he could capture this vessel, study its technology, the Empire would become even more powerful. The Emperor himself would reward such a prize. "Open a channel," he ordered. Aboard the Indomitable, the crew heard the Admiral's voice. It was rough and harsh, translated by their computers into something they could understand. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Imperial space. Your presence here is illegal. You will power down all weapons and engines immediately. You will surrender your ship for inspection. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. Jinho glanced at his officers. Yuna's jaw tightened. Taeho shook his head slowly. Hana looked worried. They all knew what this meant. These aliens were not interested in peaceful contact. Captain, Yuna asked quietly. Orders? Jinho sat back down in his chair. He had spent 20 years in space, 10 of those years exploring unknown regions, making first contact with new species. The last 10 years, he had served in Earth's military fleet. He had seen peace and war. He preferred peace, but he knew how to handle war. Hana. Respond with the following message. We respectfully decline your demand. The Indomitable is a sovereign vessel of Earth. We will not power down our defenses while surrounded by armed warships. We again request peaceful passage. If you wish to inspect our credentials, we are happy to provide them through diplomatic channels. Hana transmitted the message. Her hands shook slightly. Message sent, Captain. On the Dravek flagship, Vorthek's face darkened with rage. They dare refuse me? They dare speak to an Imperial admiral with such disrespect? His officers waited. They knew that tone. They had seen what happened to those who insulted the admiral's pride. These Terrans need to learn their place, Vorthek said coldly. They need to understand that the Dravek Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. We do not ask. We command. He pointed at his weapons officer. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Target their forward section. Do not destroy them yet. Let them see what happens to those who defy Imperial authority. The weapons officer hesitated. Admiral, we do not know their defensive capabilities. Did I ask for your opinion? Fire. The Dravek cruiser's main cannon charged. Energy gathered in the massive weapon. Then, with a flash of purple light, a beam of concentrated plasma shot toward the Indomitable. On the Terran bridge, alarms blared. Incoming fire, Yuna called out. Her training took over instantly. Her fingers danced across her controls. Point. Defense. Systems. Engaging. Automatic response. Taeho gripped his console. Shields. Standing by. The plasma beam raced toward the Indomitable. It would have melted through most ships' armor, but it never reached the Terran vessel. Dozens of small turrets along the Indomitable's hull swiveled and fired. Tiny railgun rounds, moving at incredible speeds, tore through the plasma beam. The energy scattered harmlessly into space. Silence filled both bridges. Vorthek stared at the screen. What just happened? His tactical officer's voice trembled. Admiral, they intercepted our shot. Their point defense system reacted faster than our sensors could track. The weapon they used, it fired solid projectiles at velocities that should not be possible. Aboard the Indomitable, Jinho sighed. He had hoped to avoid this. He had really hoped these aliens would be reasonable. Yuna, he said quietly, keep all defensive systems active. Do not fire unless fired upon again. Taeho, divert more power to shields. Hana, send another message. Tell them this was their warning shot. The next one is ours. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. Message sent, Captain. In the empty space between the two fleets, tension grew like a storm about to break. The Dravek had never met a species that could stop their weapons so easily. The Terrans had never met a species so aggressive on first contact. Both sides waited to see who would move next, and in that moment, the future of the entire sector hung in the balance. Admiral Vorthek stared at the tactical display. His clawed fingers gripped the edge of his command console hard enough to leave marks in the metal. Around him, his bridge crew worked in nervous silence. They had all seen what happened. Their most powerful warning shot had been swatted aside like an insect. This is impossible, Vorthek muttered. His mind raced through possibilities. Perhaps it was luck. Perhaps their sensors had malfunctioned. Perhaps this Terran ship had simply been in the right position at the right time. His tactical officer cleared his throat. "Admiral, we are receiving another transmission from the Terran vessel. Play it." Captain Jinho's voice filled the bridge. It was calm and professional, with no hint of anger or fear. "Admiral Vorthek, we have demonstrated our defensive capabilities. We do not wish to escalate this situation. Please allow us to pass through your territory peacefully. We will be gone within hours. There is no need for conflict." Exus 1. Vorthek's red eyes blazed. The calm tone made it worse. This human was treating him like an equal. No, worse than that. The human was speaking to him like a teacher might speak to a foolish child. "No need for conflict." Vorthek's voice was low and dangerous. "You invade Imperial space. You ignore Imperial authority. You intercept Imperial weapons. And you dare tell me there is no need for conflict?" He turned to his fleet coordinator. "Order cruisers, Revenge, Darkblade, and Worldbreaker to attack formation. Target the Terran vessel from 3 different angles. Maximum firepower. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. We will take it apart piece by piece and learn its secrets." The coordinator hesitated. "Admiral, regulations require that we warn the Emperor before engaging an unknown. The Emperor gave me authority over this sector." Vorthek roared. "I do not need permission to swat down an insect. Execute my orders. All. Vorthek." The 3 Dravek cruisers moved into position. Each one was twice the size of a standard warship, bristling with weapons. Their hulls were dark purple, covered in armor plating that had survived 100 battles. They formed a triangle around the Indomitable, weapons charging with deadly light. On the Terran bridge, Lieutenant Yuna Choi watched the enemy movements with professional focus. "Captain, 3 large vessels are moving into attack positions. Their weapons are charging. I am reading massive energy buildup. They are preparing for a full assault." Captain Jinho stood and walked to the main view screen. He clasped his hands behind his back and studied the approaching ships. His face was sad, not afraid. He had hoped it would not come to this. "Hana," he said quietly, "send one final message. Tell them we are invoking Earth's first contact protocols. Tell them we will defend ourselves if attacked. Tell them we are giving them one last chance to stand down." Ensign Hana Shin's fingers flew across her console. "Message sent, sir." Commander Taeho Kim looked up from engineering. His weathered face showed concern. "Captain, these aliens do not seem interested in talking." "I know," Jinho replied. "But we have to try. That is what makes us different. Taeho, we always try." In the medical bay deep inside the Indomitable, Dr. Minji Kang was preparing for casualties. She was a small woman, with sharp eyes and hands that never shook. She had served in the Terran fleet for 15 years and had seen too many injured crew members. Her medical team was readying beds and equipment. Her assistant, a young medic named Junho Lee, looked worried. "Doctor, do you think it will come to a fight?" Minji checked her instruments. "I hope not. But Captain Jinho always tells us to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So we prepare." She thought about the irony of it all. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself. Wars had nearly destroyed Earth multiple times. Nuclear weapons, biological plagues, artificial intelligence gone wrong. Humans had almost wiped themselves out a dozen different ways, but they had survived. They had learned. They had grown up. So, now humanity traveled the stars, trying to be better than they once were, and the first aliens they met wanted to attack them on sight. The universe had a strange sense of humor. Back on the bridge, the 3 Dravek cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Purple energy beams lanced through space. Missile pods opened and released swarms of explosive projectiles. Point defense lasers created a web of deadly light. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Incoming," Yuna called out. Her voice was steady. Multiple weapon types. Analyzing. Energy beams. Kinetic missiles. And directed laser fire. Impact. In 15 seconds. Shields to maximum, Jinho ordered. "Taeho. How are we doing?" Taeho's fingers moved across his engineering console. "Routing all available power to defensive grid. We can take this hit." "Captain, these weapons are powerful, but not as advanced as Dominion tech we faced last year." "Good. Hold position. Let them waste their ammunition." The Dravek weapons struck the Indomitable's shields. The bridge lights flickered briefly. The deck shuddered, but the shields held. The energy beams splashed across the invisible barrier like water against a window. The missiles exploded harmlessly. The lasers could not penetrate. Inside the ship, crew members grabbed onto consoles and railings. The shaking lasted for several seconds. Then it stopped. The shields had absorbed everything. Yuna checked her readouts. Shields at 92%. Minor power fluctuation. No damage. On the Dravek flagship, officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Their most powerful combined assault had done nothing. The Terran ship sat in space, completely undamaged. "Impossible!" Vorthek shouted. 3 cruisers firing at maximum power. Nothing should survive that. His science officer spoke up, his voice shaking. "Admiral, I am analyzing their shield technology. It is unlike anything in our databases. The way it disperses energy, it is revolutionary. If we could capture even a small part of this technology, I know," Vorthek interrupted. "That is why we must take that ship intact." He activated the fleet-wide communication. "All ships, converge on the Terran vessel. Surround it completely. Fire at will. I want continuous bombardment until their shields fail. They cannot hold forever." 15 more Dravek warships moved forward. The space around the Indomitable filled with enemy vessels. They formed a sphere, trapping the Terran Battleship in the center. Then they all began firing at once. The assault was overwhelming. Energy beams from 20 directions. Thousands of missiles. Laser fire that could cut through asteroids. The Dravek threw everything they had at the lone Terran ship. On the Indomitable's bridge, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. The entire ship shook under the constant bombardment, shields holding at 75%. Taeho called out over the noise. 70%. 68%. Hana gripped her console. "Captain, they are not stopping." Jinho watched the tactical display. His ship was completely surrounded. The Dravek were pouring fire into his shields, with brutal efficiency. Eventually, even the Indomitable's advanced shields would fail under this much firepower. He had tried diplomacy. He had tried warnings. He had given them every chance to avoid this outcome. "Yuna," he said, and his voice carried the weight of command. "Are you tracking all enemy vessels?" "Yes, sir. 20 ships. All positions locked. Can you disable their weapons without destroying the ships?" Yuna's eyes widened slightly. Even now, even under attack, the captain wanted to minimize casualties. It was the Terran way, but it was also incredibly difficult. "Sir, that kind of precision targeting, while under fire, it will be challenging. Can you do it?" Yuna straightened in her chair. Her fingers moved to the weapons controls. A small smile crossed her face. "Yes, sir. I can do it." Jinho nodded. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He turned to address his entire bridge crew. "We are Terrans," he said clearly. "We do not kill unless there is no other choice. We do not destroy unless we must. These aliens attacked us. Yes, but they did so out of fear and pride, not evil. So we will teach them a lesson. We will show them what humanity really is. We will show them that strength and mercy are not opposites. He sat back in his command chair. His next words would be recorded in Terran fleet history. Lieutenant Choi, you have permission to engage. Disable their weapons systems. Non-lethal targeting only. Show them what happens when they force Terrans to fight back. Yuna's smile grew wider. Her hands moved across her controls with practiced grace. Aye, Captain. With pleasure. The Indomitable's weapon ports opened, and the Dravek were about to learn that some species did not need to kill to win. The first railgun round left the Indomitable at 17% of light speed. It was a small tungsten rod, no bigger than a finger, but at that velocity, it carried more kinetic energy than most explosive warheads. Lieutenant Yuna Choi had calculated the shot perfectly. The round crossed 3,000 kilometers in a fraction of a second. It struck the main weapon array on the Dravek cruiser Revenge. The weapon turret exploded in a shower of metal and sparks, but the hull behind it remained intact. Not a single crew member died. First target disabled, Yuna reported calmly. Adjusting for target 2. On the bridge of the Darkblade, the weapons officer screamed as his console exploded. The ship shook. Alarms howled. But when the smoke cleared, he realized he was still alive. The Terran weapon had destroyed only the weapon itself, nothing else. Admiral Vorthek watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The Terran ship moved through space with impossible grace. It should not be able to dodge like that. Ships that large were supposed to be slow. But the Indomitable twisted and turned, avoiding most incoming fire while its weapons spoke with surgical precision. Another railgun round. Another weapon system destroyed. Then another, and another. How are they doing this? Vorthek demanded. How are they targeting so precisely while moving so fast? His tactical officer could barely speak. Admiral, their targeting computers must be incredibly advanced. They are calculating trajectories that our best systems could not manage. And their weapons. They are firing solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. The impact force is devastating, but they are choosing exactly where to hit. Commander Taeho Kim worked frantically at his engineering station. The Indomitable was taking damage from the Dravek weapons that did manage to hit. The shields were holding, but power conduits throughout the ship were straining under the load. Rerouting power from secondary systems, he called out. Shields at 60%. And holding. But Captain, we cannot maintain this forever. We do not need forever, Jinho replied. Just a few more minutes. Yuna. Status? 10 ships disabled, sir. 10 more to go. No casualties on either side. Her voice carried a note of pride. The Indomitable spun on its axis, dodging a salvo of missiles. Point defense turrets shredded the ones that got too close. Then the battleship's main railgun fired again. This time, it took out 3 weapon emplacements in quick succession on the cruiser Worldbreaker. Ensign Hana Shin listened to the communication channels. The Dravek were panicking. She could hear it in their voices, even through the translation software. They were shouting, confused, terrified. They had never faced an enemy like this. Captain, she said quietly. The Dravek are trying to retreat. Some of their ships are powering up their engines. Let them go, Jinho ordered. We are not here to take prisoners. We are here to defend ourselves and teach a lesson. But Admiral Vorthek was not retreating. His pride would not allow it. He stood on his bridge, watching his fleet fall apart around him. 20 warships, the pride of the Dravek Imperial Navy, and one Terran vessel was destroying them all, without killing a single person. It was humiliating. It was impossible. It was unacceptable. All remaining ships, he roared into the fleet communication. Concentrate fire on that vessel. Everything you have. Overload your weapons if necessary. I want that ship destroyed. 5 cruisers, the only ones with working weapons left, turned toward the Indomitable. Their reactors went into overload mode, feeding massive amounts of power to their remaining guns. This would burn out their weapon systems permanently. But Vorthek did not care. He wanted that Terran ship Gone. Captain! Yuna warned. Massive energy spike. The remaining hostiles are overloading their weapons. They are going to fire everything at once. Jinho leaned forward in his chair. Can we take it? Taeho checked his readouts. His face went pale. If they all fire at once, at full overload, our shields might fail. I cannot guarantee we will survive it intact. For the first time since the battle began, silence fell on the Terran bridge. The crew looked at their captain. They trusted him. They had followed him through dangers before. But this was different. This was a desperate enemy making a last stand. Jinho thought quickly. He could destroy those ships. Yuna could target their reactors, blow them all apart. It would save his crew. But it would also kill thousands of Dravek. Everything they had fought for, everything they believed in, would mean nothing. Yuna, he said slowly. Can you hit their reactors without destroying them? Force an emergency shutdown? Yuna calculated rapidly. That is very difficult, Captain. The targeting needs to be perfect. If I am off by even a few centimeters, the reactors will explode. But can you do it? She met his eyes. In that moment, she understood what he was asking. He was asking her to make 5 impossible shots while under heavy fire. He was asking her to risk the entire ship to save the enemy. Yes, sir, she said firmly. I can do it. Then do it. Fast. The 5 Dravek cruisers fired. The combined beam of energy was like a small star. It lit up the darkness of space. It was enough power to vaporize anything in its path. But Yuna had already fired. 5 railgun rounds, launched in quick succession. Each one followed a slightly different trajectory, adjusted for ship movement and reactor position. They raced ahead of the energy beam. The first round struck the reactor core of the leading cruiser. The impact was perfect. It damaged the containment field just enough to trigger safety protocols. The reactor shut down instantly. The ship went dark. The second round hit. Another reactor shut down. Then the third, fourth, and fifth. All 5 Dravek cruisers went dead in space. Their emergency systems barely keeping life support running. The massive energy beam they had fired disappeared as the power source died. On the Indomitable, Taeho Kim let out a long breath. All hostile weapons disabled. No enemy ships destroyed. No casualties on either side. He looked at the captain with something like awe. Sir, we just won a battle against 20 warships without killing anyone. Jinho stood and straightened his uniform. Hana, open a channel to the Dravek flagship. Channel open, sir. Jinho's voice was firm, but not cruel. Admiral Vorthek, this battle is over. Your fleet is disabled. We have proven that we can destroy you if we wish. But we do not wish to. We came here by accident. We tried to leave peacefully. You forced this fight. Now you see the result. On the Dravek flagship, Vorthek stood in the darkness. Emergency lights cast red shadows across his face. His crew stared at him, waiting for orders. But he had no orders to give. He had thrown everything at the Terran ship. And he had lost without the Terrans even trying to kill him. Jinho continued. We will remain in this position for 1 hour. We will repair our shields and continue on our way. If any of your ships attack us again, we will defend ourselves. But we will not pursue you. We will not take revenge. We have no desire to be your enemy. We hope that someday you will understand that. The communication ended. The Indomitable sat quietly among the disabled Dravek fleet. Like a wolf surrounded by wounded dogs, it had chosen not to finish off. In the Dravek fleet, officers and crew began to realize what had happened. They had attacked first. They had tried to kill. And the Terrans had stopped them without killing anyone in return. What kind of species had that kind of power and that kind of mercy? Admiral Vorthek felt something he had not felt in decades. Shame. Not shame at losing. Shame at what he had done. He had attacked peaceful visitors. He had ordered his ships to destroy them, and they had spared him anyway, but worse was coming. On his damaged console, a light blinked, an incoming transmission. The encryption code made his blood run cold. It was from the Imperial Palace itself. The Emperor had been watching. With shaking hands, Vorthek opened the communication. An image appeared on his screen. It was not the Emperor. It was Vice Admiral Kranoth, the Emperor's personal advisor. His face was cold with anger. "Admiral Vorthek," Kranoth's voice was ice. "You have engaged an unknown species without permission. You have lost an entire fleet without destroying the enemy. You have brought shame to the Empire. And worst of all, you have revealed our weakness to these Terrans." Vorthek tried to speak, but no words came out. Kranoth continued. "You are relieved of command immediately. I am assuming control of the fleet, and I am going to do what you should have done from the beginning." He paused. "I am going to talk to these Terrans, because if they have this kind of power and this kind of mercy, the Empire needs them as allies, not enemies." The communication ended. Vorthek sat down slowly. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. But as he looked at the Terran ship on his screen, still sitting peacefully among his disabled fleet, he realized something. Maybe Kranoth was right. Maybe these Terrans were exactly what the Empire needed, whether it wanted them or not. Captain Jinho Park stood in front of the main view screen, watching the disabled Dravek ships float in the darkness. His crew was working to repair the minor damage from the battle. The shields were recharging. Everything was calm now. Too calm. "Captain," Ensign Hana Shin said suddenly, "I am receiving a transmission from the Dravek flagship, but it is not from Admiral Vorthek. Someone else is calling. Put it through," Jinho ordered. The screen changed. A Dravek officer appeared. He was older than Vorthek, with gray scales around his eyes and a uniform that carried more decorations. His expression was serious, but not hostile. "I am Vice Admiral Kranoth," he said. His voice was steady and measured. "I have relieved Admiral Vorthek of command. I wish to speak with you, Captain Park, if you will allow it." Jinho studied the alien carefully. This one seemed different. There was intelligence in those eyes, not just pride. "I am listening, Vice Admiral." One having one. "I am listening." One having one. "Vice Admiral." "I am listening, Vice Admiral." "What you did today," Kranoth began, "was remarkable. You defeated our fleet without destroying it. You could have killed thousands, but you chose not to. In all my years of service, I have never seen anything like it. The Dravek Empire has encountered many species. None of them showed mercy when they had the power to destroy. We are not like other species you have met," Jinho replied simply. "I am beginning to understand that." Kranoth paused. "Captain, I would like to speak with you in person. Face to face. I believe we started this encounter very badly. Perhaps we can end it better." Lieutenant Yuna Choi tensed at her weapons station. She did not like this. It could be a trap, but Jinho considered the offer. Everything about his training said to be cautious, but everything about his instincts said this was a genuine offer. He had spent years reading people, and this Dravek seemed sincere. "Neutral ground," Jinho said finally. "We will meet on your flagship, but my security officer and one other crew member will accompany me. And Vice Admiral, I will be very disappointed if this is a trap." Kranoth's expression did not change. "It is not a trap, Captain. You have my word as an officer. And after what you did today, I think we both know you could fight your way out even if it was." 30 minutes later, a small shuttle left the Indomitable. Inside were 3 people. Captain Jinho Park sat calmly in his seat, reviewing his notes. Lieutenant Yuna Choi checked her sidearm for the 3rd time. And Dr. Minji Kang carried a medical kit, just in case. "I still think this is a bad idea," Yuna muttered. "We just fought them. Now we are walking into their ship?" "We fought them, And we won, Jinho replied. Now, we talk. That is how peace works, Yuna. First you prove you are strong. Then you prove you are wise. Minji smiled slightly. The captain is right. Besides, if they wanted us dead, they would have kept fighting. The fact that they are talking means they are thinking. Thinking is good. The shuttle docked with the Dravek flagship. As they stepped out, Terran boots, touching alien deck plates for the first time, they were met by a small group of Dravek officers. All of them stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Vice Admiral Kranoth stepped forward. He was even taller in person, nearly 7 feet. His scaled skin was dark blue, and his eyes were a deep red. But his posture was non-threatening. Captain Park, he said, welcome aboard the Imperial flagship Dominion. Thank you, Vice Admiral, Jinho replied. He glanced around at the Dravek crew. They looked exhausted and defeated. Your people fought bravely. We respect that. Kranoth nodded slowly. Please, follow me to the conference room. They walked through the corridors of the Dravek ship. It was darker than Terran vessels, lit by purple lights. The walls were covered in strange symbols and battle decorations. Everything spoke of a military culture that valued strength above all else. The conference room was large, with a long table in the center. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Kranoth began. I have been in the Imperial Navy for 40 years, he said quietly. I have fought in 27 campaigns. I have seen the Empire crush rebellions, conquer worlds, and destroy fleets. We are taught that strength is everything, that mercy is weakness, that the strong rule and the weak serve. He looked directly at Jinho. But today, you showed me something I did not understand. You had the strength to destroy us, but you had the wisdom not to. That kind of power, I do not know what to call it. We call it humanity, Jinho said. We learned it the hard way. Our people spent centuries fighting each other. We nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. Nuclear war. Biological weapons. We came very close to extinction. Dr. Minji Kang spoke up. I was born after the last war. But my grandparents lived through it. They told me stories of cities burning, of entire populations gone in days, of a world that almost ended because no one knew when to stop fighting. But you survived, Kranoth said. We survived, Jinho agreed. And we learned. We learned that true strength is not just the power to destroy, it is the wisdom to know when not to. We learned that the greatest victory is the one where nobody has to die. One of the Dravek officers, a younger female, spoke hesitantly. But what if your enemy does not share this wisdom? What if they see your mercy as weakness and attack again? Yuna answered this time. Then we defend ourselves. Like we did today. We do not seek war, but we do not fear it either. We simply prefer peace. Kranoth was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. Captain Park, I need to tell you something. Something important. There is a reason the Dravek Empire is so aggressive. A reason we control this territory so jealously. He activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the sector. The outer nexus was clearly marked. Beyond it was a region marked in red. That is Vokrath space, Kranoth said, and his voice carried real fear. The Vokrath swarm. A species that consumes everything in its path. They do not negotiate. The Vokrath swarm. Vokrath swarm. They do not take prisoners. They simply eat. Entire worlds, entire civilizations. Gone. The hologram showed images. Planets stripped of all life. Ships torn apart. Cities reduced to empty husks. Minji gasped. How long has this been happening? 50 years. Kranoth replied. The swarm appeared 50 years ago. They have consumed 17 worlds that we know of. We stopped them here, at the outer nexus. But only barely. Only by being aggressive. Only by being strong. Jinho understood now. You thought we were the swarm. Or another threat like them. That is why you attacked. Yes, Cranoth admitted. We have learned to shoot first. Because hesitation means death when facing the Vokroth. Before Jinho could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the Dravek ship. Red lights flashed. Officers jumped to their feet. A voice screamed over the communication system. Multiple contacts! Vokrath signatures. They are coming through the Nexus. Cranoth's face went pale. Impossible. They have never attacked in this strength before. He ran to a wall console. The others followed. The display showed dozens of ships entering the system. They were organic-looking, like massive insects or sea creatures. They moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish. How many? Jingyu demanded. 60 ships, Cranoth said, his voice hollow. Maybe more. Captain, you need to leave. Now. Get to your ship and run. Our fleet is disabled. We cannot fight. You can still escape. But Jinho was staring at the display. He was calculating, thinking. His crew knew that look. How long until they reach weapons range? He asked. 12 minutes, a Dravek officer replied. Maybe less. Yuna grabbed Jinho's arm. Captain, we need to go. We need to get back to the Indomitable. Yes, Jinho said slowly. We do. But not to run. Everyone stared at him. Captain, Minji said carefully. You cannot be thinking. 1 ship against 60? Yuna finished. Sir, even we cannot handle those odds. Jinho looked at Cranoth. Vice Admiral, if we run, what happens to your fleet? Your people? Cranoth closed his eyes. The Vokroth do not take prisoners. They will tear my ships apart and consume the crew. Thousands will die. Not if we help, Jinho said firmly. You would do that? Cranoth's eyes widened. We attacked you. We tried to destroy you. And now you would stay and fight for us? Jinho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a hard decision and would see it through. Vice Admiral, you just told me about an enemy that consumes entire worlds. An enemy that does not negotiate or show mercy. Well, there is one thing that humanity does better than any species in the galaxy. What is that? Cranoth asked. We fight monsters. Jinho turned to his officers. Yuna, Minji, back to the shuttle. We have work to do. The shuttle raced back to the Indomitable. Captain Jinho Park sat in silence, his mind already planning the battle ahead. 60 Vokroth ships. He had fought against bad odds before, but this was different. This was not a defensive battle. This was choosing to stand between an unstoppable force and people who could not defend themselves. Captain, Lieutenant Yuna Choi said quietly. We are outnumbered 60 to 1. Our shields can take a lot of damage, but not that much. Not from 60 ships firing at once. I know, Jinho replied. That is why we will not let them fire at once. Dr. Minji Kang looked at him. What is your plan? We make ourselves the biggest threat. We draw their attention, and we hold the line long enough for the Dravek to get their ships running again. He paused. And we pray that Terran engineering is as good as Taeho always claims it is. The shuttle docked. They ran through the corridors to the bridge. Commander Taeho Kim was already there, studying the tactical display. His face was grim. Captain, he said. I have been scanning the Vokrath ships. They are biological in nature, but with mechanical components. Their weapons are some kind of plasma and acid mixture. Very nasty. And they are fast. Can we hurt them? Jinho asked. Oh yes, Taeho replied with a cold smile. Organic armor does not do well against railguns. We can hurt them. The question is whether we can hurt enough of them before they overwhelm us. Jinho sat in his command chair. He activated the ship-wide communication. All crew, this is the captain. We are about to engage a hostile force known as the Vokrath Swarm. They outnumber us significantly. but they are attacking disabled ships full of people who cannot defend themselves. So we are going to defend them. I will not lie to you. This will be dangerous. But this is what we do. This is what makes us Terrans. We stand between the innocent and the monsters. All hands to battle stations. Park out. He closed the channel and looked at his bridge crew. Hana. Open a channel to Vice Admiral Kranoth. Ensign Hana Shin's fingers moved across her console. Channel open, sir. Vice Admiral, Jinho said clearly. The Indomitable is moving to intercept the Vok Wrath fleet. We will buy you time. Use it to get your ships operational. Once you have weapons and shields back online, join the fight. Understood? Kranoth's voice came through, filled with emotion. Captain, I do not know what to say. Thank you. We will not forget this. Just get your ships running. We cannot hold them off forever. Indomitable out. The Terran Battleship moved forward, positioning itself between the advancing Vokrath swarm and the disabled Dravek fleet. On the view screen, the alien ships grew larger. They looked like nightmares made real. Twisted, organic shapes, covered in chitinous armor and pulsing veins. They moved through space, like predators stalking prey. Range in 3 minutes, Yuna reported. Captain, I am detecting communication between the Vokrath ships. They are coordinating their attack. Good, Jinho said. That means they think. If they think, we can outsmart them. How do you outsmart 60 ships? Hana asked nervously. We make them angry, Jinho replied. Teho, give me maximum power to forward shields. Route everything we have. Life support to minimum. Interior lights to minimum. Everything goes to shields and weapons. Aye, sir, Teho acknowledged. Throughout the ship, lights dimmed. Crew members felt the temperature drop as climate control reduced power, but the shields glowed brighter. Yuna, Jinho continued. Target the largest Vokrath ship, the one in the center of their formation. I want you to hit it with everything we have. Make it hurt. Yuna's hands moved across her controls. Targeting the lead ship. Main railgun ready. Missile tubes loaded. Point defense standing by. Targeting Rella. Targeting Rella. Targeting the lead ship. Targeting the lead. Targeting the lead ship. Targeting the lead ship. Fire. Jingyu ordered. The Indomitable unleashed its full arsenal. The main railgun fired 3 times in rapid succession. Missiles streaked through space. Secondary guns added their own fire. The combined attack struck the lead Vokrath ship like a hammer. The organic armor shattered. Internal fluids sprayed into space. The alien ship twisted and screamed, a sound that somehow crossed the vacuum. It did not explode cleanly like a normal ship. It died like a living thing, thrashing and bleeding. Direct hit, Yuna called out. Enemy ship is breaking apart. And just as Jinho hoped, the Vokrath swarm reacted. All 60 ships changed course. They forgot about the helpless Dravek fleet. They turned their full attention to the ship that had killed one of their own. They are all targeting us, Teho said. Captain, you got their attention. Good. Jinho replied calmly. Now let us see if we can keep it. Evasive maneuvers. Pattern, Delta, 7. The Indomitable began to move. For such a large ship, it danced through space with incredible grace. The Terran Battleship had been designed by people who understood physics and engineering like few others in the galaxy. Every thruster fired with perfect timing. Every movement was calculated to minimize exposure. The Vokrath ships opened fire. Bioplasma bolts and acid streams filled the space around the Indomitable. Most missed as the Terran ship twisted and turned. Those that hit struck the shields. Shields at 85%, Teho reported, holding steady. Return fire, Jinho ordered. Yuna, pick them apart, one at a time. Yuna worked her magic. The railguns spoke again and again. Each shot was perfect. Each round found its target. Vokrath ships began to die. 2. Then 3. Then 5. But there were still so many more. Enemy ships are surrounding us, Hana warned. They are trying to cut off our escape routes. We are not escaping, Jinho replied. Keep fighting. Minutes felt like hours. The Indomitable continued its deadly dance. Yuna destroyed ship after ship. Teho managed the shields, routing power wherever it was needed most. Hana coordinated communications and sensor data. Everyone worked together like a single organism. But the numbers were catching up. More Vokrath ships meant more weapons. More weapons meant more hits. And even the Indomitable's shields could not take infinite damage. Shields at 50%, Teho called out. Sweat dripped down his face. We are taking too many hits, Captain. I am having trouble keeping up with the repairs. How many Vokrath ships left? Jinho asked. Yuna checked quickly. 32, sir. We have destroyed 28. Keep shooting. But then something changed. On the tactical display, new contacts appeared. Dravek ships. Their engines were running. Their weapons were online. Vice Admiral Kranoth had gotten his fleet operational. Captain! Hana's voice was excited. The Dravek are joining the fight. 12 Dravek cruisers moved into position alongside the Indomitable. Their weapons opened fire on the Vokrath swarm. Purple energy beams lanced through space. The aliens suddenly found themselves caught between two forces. Kranoth's voice came over the communication channel. Captain Park, the Dravek Imperial fleet stands with you. Together, we finish this. Jinho smiled. Together. I like the sound of that. The battle turned. With the Dravek reinforcements, the odds became manageable. The Vokrath swarm began to break apart. Some tried to flee. Others fought to the last. But between Terran precision and Dravek firepower, they did not last long. 20 minutes later, it was over. The last Vokrath ship died in a burst of organic matter and mechanical debris. The space around the outer nexus was filled with the wreckage of the battle. But the threat was gone. On the Indomitable's bridge, the crew let out a collective breath. All enemy ships destroyed, Yuna reported. She slumped in her chair, exhausted. We did it. Shields at 12%, Teho added. But we are still in one piece. Barely. Jinho stood and straightened his uniform. Damage report? Minor hull breaches on decks 7 and 9, Teho replied. No casualties. Some injured from the shaking, but nothing serious. Dr. Kang's team is handling them. Teho. Good. Jinho looked at the view screen. The Dravek fleet was reforming. Hana. Open a channel. To Vice Admiral Kranoth. The Vice Admiral's face appeared. For the first time, Jinho saw something he had not seen before in a Dravek. Gratitude. Captain Park, Kranoth said. You saved my fleet. You saved thousands of lives. Lives of people who attacked you just hours ago. I do not have words for this. You do not need words, Jinho replied gently. You need action. Vice Admiral. The Vokrath attacked in greater numbers than usual. That means they are getting stronger. You cannot fight them alone. I know. Kranoth admitted. The Empire has been losing ground for years. We hide it with propaganda and pride. But the truth is, we are barely holding the line. Then stop fighting alone, Jinho said. Earth has faced extinction-level threats before. We know what that is like. We know the fear. But we also know that survival requires cooperation. It requires setting aside pride and working together. Kranoth was silent for a moment. Then he said, What are you proposing? Captain? An alliance, Jinho replied. Earth and the Dravek Empire. We share technology. We share resources. We stand together against the Vokrath. We turn this sector from a battlefield into a fortress that nothing can break through. The Emperor would need to approve such an alliance, Kranoth said slowly. I think he will understand that the Terrans are not our enemies. They are our salvation. 2 weeks later, formal negotiations began. Captain Jinho Park remained in the outer nexus as Earth sent diplomatic teams and military advisors. The Dravek were slow to trust. But they learned. They watched as Terran engineers helped repair their ships. They learned as Terran tacticians shared strategies for fighting the Vokroth. They saw that humanity meant what it said. One evening, Jinho stood in the observation deck of the Indomitable. Lieutenant Yuna Choi joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Here, she said, handing him one. You look like you need it. Thank you, Yuna. He took the cup and stared out at the stars. Outside, Terran and Dravek ships patrolled together. We were not supposed to be here, Yuna said quietly. We came here by accident. A navigation error. Jinho smiled. Do you believe in accidents, Lieutenant? I used to. She replied. But after everything that happened, maybe some accidents are meant to be. Maybe the universe knew these people needed help, and maybe it knew that humans are too stubborn to leave people in danger, even if those people attacked us first. Maybe. Jinho agreed. Or maybe we just got lucky. Either way, we made a difference. We showed the galaxy that there is another way. That strength and mercy can exist together. They stood in silence for a while, watching the ship's patrol. Then Yuna said, Captain, what do you think will happen now? Jinho considered the question. I think the galaxy is not ready for humanity. We are strange. We fight like demons but show mercy like angels. We refuse to follow the rules that every other species accepts. We show up where we are not supposed to be and make things better anyway. He raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. To the Terran way. May it confuse our enemies and comfort our friends. Yuna laughed and clinked her cup against his. To the Terran way. Far away on Earth, command centers received reports of the incident. A battleship had gotten lost, encountered a hostile empire, fought off an alien swarm, and created humanity's first interstellar alliance. The news spread through the fleet. Soon, it became a legend. The TSS Indomitable. The ship that showed up where it should not be. The ship that taught an empire what mercy looks like. The ship that proved that humans might be the galaxy's biggest problem or its greatest hope. Maybe both. And as Captain Jinho Park watched the stars, he knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was a big place, full of dangers and wonders. And wherever humanity went, they would bring one simple message. We are here, we are strong, we are kind, and we are not going anywhere.